When you move, you need a reliable company led by passionate folks, eager to assist its customers during a transitional process that needs to be smooth. Call Essential Moving Experts at 844-368-5750 for all your local and long-distance moving needs. You can rely on Essential Moving Experts. Mention the Big O Show and get $150 off. Family owned and operated, they offer free 30-day storage, full-service moving, fully licensed, bonded, and insured. Moving was never so easy. EssentialMovingExperts.com. It's time to go around the state and find out what's happening on the college football gridiron, with some of the best insiders in the state of Florida covering the Canes, Seminoles, and Gators. It's the Sports Talk 305 State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable with Manny Navarro from The Athletic, Ira Schofel from warchant.com, and Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun. Huddle up, Miami, Florida, and Florida State fans. Here's your host, Orlando Alzugari.
Righty, we are back for another week of the State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable as we talk a little Gators, a little Seminoles, and a little Canes every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tell your friends, tell your family members, tell even the people you hate. We'll take it on. It doesn't matter. Let's go. Bring them on. It's all good. Good evening, gentlemen. Hope you all are doing well.
We're good, man. How are you guys?
Good. All right. Good. I don't know. Is it all right between the Canes and the Gators right now? The Cromani thing going on? I don't know. It was like, and by the way, Schofel, you were also convinced last week that, for sure he was going to the Gators. Manny was like, he's going to the Gators. But that Diaz money keeps flowing, baby.
Yeah, we don't know what that was. It could just a change of heart. You know, there's no telling. Maybe he realized how wonderful the beaches are in South Florida.
Yeah, I just think he saw how many DBs the Gators were bringing in, and he thought the money was pretty good at Miami too. So
I got to tell you, I'm going to steal a line from you, Manny, that I've used already a couple of times because it's money. And this whole recruiting stuff, it's the worst it's ever been nowadays because it's like what you say, Manny. Okay, so he commits to you. Doesn't mean he's actually going to go to your school. And then when he gets to your school, doesn't mean he's actually going to stay because it's going to be like another year before you find out if he actually is going to stay in your school. So that's the thing that's kind of, kind of nutty about recruiting. You're almost better off waiting for the player to finally develop or grab a guy from the transfer portal because there's a good chance he's not going to transfer again, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just in the beginning stages, obviously, of seeing life with the transfer portal. And, I think nowadays, players like Cormani McLean who have that 5-star designation, they pretty much can go wherever they want and make any decision they want. I think, perfect examples, you get like Lorenzo Lingard, who was a 5-star recruit at Miami, right? Didn't play the 2 years he was here, got hurt for one of them. And then Florida's eager to jump on him because they don't know that he really can't play or block, right? And so they take him, and now he's spent, 2 years sitting on the bench at Florida doing absolutely nothing. I think, basically this whole thing is predicated on the honor system, coaches being honest with each other. Hey, why didn't this kid work out? Why is he not playing in your system, etc.? I've talked to a few different college football head coaches about this subject, and I think all of them are just kind of like, look, we got to trust the people that we know in the business to give us the real story on these kids, right? And why maybe they're not seeing the field at wherever place they're at. So I think a kid like Cormani, from Miami, it's a big get. Mario loves these big recruiting splashes. They get a kid out of an area that's Gator country. So it's a big win for him. But in the long run, we really don't know how good Cormani McLean's going to be till he gets here and shows us whether or not he can do what he needs to do on the field.
You mean he might become Tate Martell?
Hey, listen, there's a lot of 5-star busts and 4-star busts that have been coming out of the state of Florida.
Who the hell gave that guy any stars? He couldn't throw 10 yards.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ohio State, Urban Meyer wanted him, right? So automatically, the moment the kid enters the transfer portal, just like Lorenzo Lingard, right? Same thing. If Urban Meyer wanted you must have some talent. And so, look, I think for Miami, the positive here is that Mario is not really doing anything on game day, and he's winning recruiting battles for top kids. That's the big takeaway for Miami.
And the one other thing I would say, Manny, is just, the point you made about, coaches being honest with each other. The challenge, though, is if a kid doesn't work out at your school and he wants to go somewhere else and you tell the truth about him, his high school coaches and his AU coach, everybody's going to kill you for running the kid down and causing him to not have other opportunities. So you kind of have to be careful with that, too.
Great point.
All right. By the way, I know Miami's been able to do it, and all three schools are kind of in the same boat that they're not having great seasons. And so, first of all, I'll touch base with you, Manny, and then I'll ask the other guys. How in the world has Mario kept his class together, and even adding Cormani this week, when things absolutely look, bad on the field? Just I'm wondering about that.
Well, I think, Mario's pretty honest with a lot of these recruits, and he's very good with the parents. And, I think, look, he's given these kids the opportunity to play, the true freshmen that he just signed, the transfers that came in. So he's got that track record, right, to say, look, I just brought these guys in, and they're playing right away for us. Nigel Kelly, he's playing 15, 20 snaps a game. He's up to 3 sacks now after having one against Virginia. Ja'Cory Brown, the quarterback out of Georgia, he's got a role, even if it's a very limited one, just running the football. Colby Young, who he just brought in from JUCO, now he's the number 1 receiver. So these kids can see on-field results in terms of immediate impact. So I think a lot of them can buy in for that reason and say, okay, he's not just talking a big game, he's actually delivering. These kids are actually getting the opportunity to play. And ultimately, for a lot of these elite kids, that's what they want. They want to not only hear a coach say, hey, you get the opportunity to play, but then see, okay, I'm really needed.
How about you? Yeah. How about you, Ira? Because it looks like they've been able to keep their class together too.
For the most part, they did lose an offensive lineman, Rod Kearney, to actually to Florida last week. But for the most part, they have. And I think look, it's for those two guys, those two schools, they still have that first year. This is the new car smell. They can sell that there's hope. Hey, when we get, the coaches can tell these recruits, hey, when we get you guys in here, it's going to be different. Mike Norvell doesn't have that luxury anymore. He's been here 3 years, so he can't just sell, hey, I got to get rid of these guys. He has to have some success this field, and that's on the field. And they've had success compared to what they had last year. So, but he's got to finish strong, and that's why the games against Miami and Florida this year, Florida State has a lot more to lose in those two games than those schools do, because they're still in their first year of coaching staff. Mike Norvell needs to win those games to prove the proof of concept, because, again, he doesn't have the advantage, I think, that Miami and Florida do.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and I think for Billy Napier, too, it's the same thing, selling opportunity. He's been playing a few freshmen this year, Shamar James, a linebacker, Trevor Etienne, good freshman running back, who scored another touchdown last week against Georgia. You sell that opportunity. I think that recruits see that, and they look at that, and they see chances for immediate playing time.
All right, let's go around the state here, and let's talk about some of the games this past weekend. And Manny, we'll start with you, because I think there was some groundbreaking stuff in the game that you covered this past week with Miami defeating Virginia. Why are you already laughing, bro? Why are you already laughing?
Groundbreaking by punting, you mean? Is that what you're discussing?
No, the Association of Insomnia.
Oh, yes, that was good stuff.
That game. So they figure now they're trying to fix the sleep habits of people all over the world. And they said, we've been doing drugs. We've been doing all these kind of things, trying to hypnotize people. Let's just put on Miami and Virginia, and that will put them to sleep. So groundbreaking stuff right now. That the Association for Insomnia, big on the game this past week, 14-12 in overtime. Wow. That made the Browns game look pretty exciting.
In 4
Yeah.
overtimes.
Yeah, four overtimes. Yeah.
I'm sorry. 4 overtime. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you other than it is what it is with the offense and how bad it's gotten because of, I would say, not just because of the injuries, but obviously I think Josh Gaddis has to scale it back after seeing Jake Garcia turn the ball over 5 times against Duke. You knew it was going to be conservative. He wasn't going to let this kid just, grip it and rip it, so to speak. And I think in this case, and even this game against Florida State, yes, Miami wants to win, but I think it's more important for them not to get embarrassed. And I think there's a chance they could get embarrassed in this game.
Yeah, that's that is. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just gonna ask you, man. So, like, when you looked at that game, I mean, there's, they got the win, right? So that's a positive. But have they found anything offensively? Or are they going to get the linemen back? What's the latest with Tyler Van Dyke? I mean, is there any chance that the offense that we've seen these last couple weeks is not the offense we see against Florida State or maybe any of these later games?
Well, I think, it probably would take a miracle to get Tyler Van Dyke into this game at this point in my mind. I know Will Mallory said that he looks great in practice. That could be just because he's actually there. My understanding, he wasn't at practice last week at all. I saw him with his arm in a sling walking around school. So I think, yes, he's back at practice. He's back around the team. He was there on the team last Saturday in Virginia, but I would be surprised if he starts. So I think right off the bat, you don't have Tyler Van Dyke. You're not going to be the same offense that you were earlier this year when you were able to move the football and put up some good yards. I think, look, the one thing that they found last week is Inez Cooper, their right guard, the true freshman that came out of Alabama that was going to be a 400-pound kid before the coaches at his high school sort of grabbed him and said, hey, stay away from the refrigerator. We're going to help you get in shape here. And he did pretty well. I mean, Miami's badly needed somebody to step into that right guard position. They ran the ball well against Virginia. They had some success running through the right side between him and DJ Scaife. And so I think if they found anything, they found some consistency in the running game with Henry Parrish. But I don't think that's nearly enough to topple Florida State. They can score points. They've got a good pass rush. This is a very, very bad matchup for Miami at a very bad time. Zion Nelson, I don't think, is coming back this season. So I think it's one of those deals where you just kind of go with what you got and hope that it's good enough.
Well, and by the way, how do you know he's going to class in a sling? Are you following him around or something? Would you?
Yeah, I just hang out in Coral Gables and
on campus now.
Man, that reminds me so much of when Jimbo was here and Christian Ponder one year was hurt late in the season. It might have been the Virginia Tech or Florida, and Jimbo kept acting like he was practicing. We all knew he wasn't practicing. Right. And then one of the receivers, we were talking to Burt Reed, and we said, how's Christian look out there? Trying to see what he would say. And he goes, oh, he looks good. He looks good. And it was the same thing as me. He looks good. He's there, right. But wasn't actually doing anything, even though Jimbo told us all week he was practicing.
We'll get a chance.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, we'll get a chance to ask Mario, or I'll make sure to ask him tomorrow when we get him again. Did Tyler actually make any throws while he was looking good out there? Because that's the most important question.
Right, that's it. And then that's the airplane scene, right? There's nothing going on. There's nothing wrong here, right? And the nose is just growing, right?
Yeah.
He looks fantastic out there. Really, they have no shot, right, without Tyler. That's kind of the way I feel in this game, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's really no chance for them to win this game, barring Florida State and Jordan Travis just turning the ball over a bunch and giving them great field position. Look, they can score some points through the kicking game. They might have Henry Parrish break through on one run and get into the end zone. But this is a game that if Miami's going to win, it's going to have to be in the teens or low 20s, and it's going to have to require some help from Florida State.
By the way, you just talked about Parrish. Is that something, because we got a little taste of it this past week, and I would imagine because if Garcia is going to be the quarterback, I would imagine there's a lot of running going on in this game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll definitely see a lot of Parrish running the football. You'll see some Lucius Stanley, the walk-on transfer from UAB. I don't know how much you'll see of Jalen Knighton. I know Mario, I asked him this week, was it something he did in practice? And not happening.
Good. Yeah, the Rooster needs to calm down and settle down there. All right, let's move over to FSU. They dismantled G-Tech 41-16. Do you have your plane ticket already for Utah? They've got you guys going on to the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, going out west for the see if Florida State can go out west. Well, I'm still praying that there's a way that Florida State somehow gets into the Gator Bowl or somewhere in the state of Florida. But right now they've got them out west.
What's wrong with Utah? Come on, bro. Little Holiday Bowl action for you.
I'm not trying to invest any more time in this season than I have to.
Listen, while you're at that state, you can marry 4 women at the same time, so it's all right. There's options there, so you can get in trouble. By the way, on all serious note, Jordan Travis getting a little love from the O'Brien and the Mannings. That's nice for Jordan, a kid that to watch him grow as he has every year. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's it's really the fan base is still divided on him. It's funny, people make their opinions early and then they stick with them and they just never let him go. And is he perfect? No. Has he missed some throws? He had the turnover late against NC State. He's missed some opportunities here or there. But compared to what they've had, I mean, he's by far the best quarterback they've had since Jameis Winston, and he's not in that category, but he's better than everybody else they've tried it out there. James Blackman and Alex Hornibrook and just it's been one disaster after another. So, people should give him credit. He's done a really nice job, and now they've gotten some pieces around him. And last week he threw for 396 yards against against Georgia Tech, excuse me. He threw for a career high 396 yards, and that's a nice number, against the ACC team. So it's interesting though, because a lot of FSU fans still are like, who are we going to find in the portal? What are we going to do at quarterback? They haven't accepted him as a guy that can win a lot of football games.
Ira,
Kevin,
how good do you think
Kevin, before you hold on a second, before you ask, let me follow up with this. Do fans look at it? Because when I look at FSU, it's almost like you're putting the weight of the world on him all the time. Whereas if you had a dominant running game and things to take some pressure off of him and those kind of things, if there was a little bit more balance, you wouldn't require him to be Superman all the damn time.
And
so it's like what Miami's trying to do right now. Like Jake is terrible, right? So they're trying to limit his passing as much as possible, which is smart. Well, with Jordan, dude, you're asking him to carry you all over the damn place. I think other people need to alleviate some of the load from him. That's all.
No, that's a great point. And in a perfect example, there was a big argument on our message boards about Jordan versus DJ Uyunglele at Clemson, and this guy was and several people were trying to argue that DJ's a better quarterback because he's had more wins and whatever. And it's like, man, put Jordan on that team and put DJ on this team, and I have a feeling Jordan would look whole lot better than DJ looks. So, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, I was just curious about how good you think this offense is and can be, and where it kind of needs to grow between now and the end of the season.
It's a good offense. I mean, it really is. I mean, whether you look at the numbers, whether you look at just watching it, I mean, again, compared to where it's been, it's come a long, long way. I think a lot of that credit goes to Mike Norvell and Alex Atkins, the coaching staff. They've done a good job with the pieces they have. This is not an offensive line that's going to road grade people, but they've done a good job through scheme and execution of being able to run the ball. They've run for over 200 yards in each of the last 3 games. The big area where they've struggled is in the red zone. They have not been good in the red zone, and that's the reason why they're one of the top 20 offenses in the country nationally in total offense, but outside the top 40 in scoring offense. They haven't always cashed in. They've kicker issues and just haven't been as efficient in the red zone. That's an area they have to improve on. I think Jordan running down near the goal line is going to be the answer to that. And they haven't done a ton of it, partly because he was injured midway through the year. But I think, in these games against Miami and Florida, if they get down in the red zone, I think you're going to see more of Jordan Travis running the ball just because that's where, they have a big advantage.
He's free of that knee brace. And by the way, the kickers went, 6 of 6 today in practice? So, yeah, baby, they're warming up there at FSU. I like it.
A lot of FSU fans are fired up about the idea of a kicker having a big impact in a Miami game. Not really. They would rather him just stand there on the sideline and kick extra points.
Yeah, but they do want him at least when he is kicking to put it between the uprights. So, that's a positive right there. All right, in Florida, a little news with Bretton Cox. Why did he get dismissed?
Yeah, Billy Napier said an accumulation of issues. He was visibly frustrated at the end of that Florida-Georgia game. Of course, he's a Georgia transfer, was very charged up. Kind of threw a punch or at least some kind of a glancing blow on that last touchdown there. There were some rumblings he may have, said some words to some people post-game also, or was pretty upset in the locker room. And it's just been a situation with Brenton where, just hasn't been a right fit here for him. Under Billy Napier, and they're moving on. But it is a bit of a loss because, he probably is their most proven edge rusher. But I think he's been frustrated too. I mean, he's had 2 sacks this year. He probably expected to have more. He had that big whiff on the sack on the blitz against Tennessee. That was a big turning point in that game. And it just has not worked out for him here defensively in the scheme.
Kevin, I wanted to ask you about Anthony Richardson. I know obviously Georgia's got a monster defense, and they were able to score some points against them. But we're 2/3 of the way through the season now. I think he's ranked 91st in quarterback rating. I know everybody thinks he's going to be a great prospect, but do you think there's more upside to him here in for the rest of this season, or what's sort of your view on the quarterback position and if they're really getting enough out of him?
Yeah, and there's been some grumbling, amongst the fan base about, why don't we see Kitna? Why don't we see Jack Miller, who's back healthy, the transfer from Ohio State? But it sounds like Billy Napier is going to stick with Anthony Richardson the rest of the season and see what he has. And I think there are a lot of reasons for the lack of growth, and the fact that he had this huge first game against Utah that kind of raised everyone's expectations. But maybe first year in Billy Napier's system, it hasn't completely clicked. There's some questions whether he should be running more. And I thought that he was more aggressive and ran half and had to let him on a nice 75-yard touchdown drive. But it's just been a lack of consistency in the throws and the lack of consistency in the run game for him. That's really hurt. And with this offense. And, you see him make a play where he looks off a safety, he throws a 78-yard touchdown pass to Xavier Henderson, and you say to yourself, wow, you really got something here. But you just don't see it consistently enough, and you don't see this Florida offense really sustaining drives. That's been a big issue. It's kind of been feast or famine. It's either been, big plays or, not completing drives with any level of consistency.
See, with me, that when I look at Richardson, I go through this theory that I have of certain quarterbacks who are really athletes playing quarterback. They're not really quarterbacks who bring athleticism. See, Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray are quarterbacks who bring athleticism, whereas a Jalen Hurts and a Lamar Jackson and even Ryan Tannehill, a different kind of running, but they require running in order for them to become, effective at what they do. For Ryan, it's not necessarily his legs, it's the running game that he needs in order for him to at least facilitate. Whereas Lamar Jackson and guys like that, they have to run in order to get their offenses going. And I think Richardson's that guy. And that's why you see there are moments where they wow you because they're athletes. And then the moments that they depress you, it's because they're athletes. It's because they're not thinking like quarterbacks. It's because they can't pass consistently like a quarterback. They can throw, but they're not passers. And that's the problem I see with Richardson, that it's still an athlete trying to learn how to play that position naturally.
Yeah, I've heard coaches use phrase, he doesn't make the boring plays, right? He makes the spectacular plays, but he doesn't make the routine 8 to 10-yard throws. And that's Richardson in a nutshell. Throws a very pretty deep ball, can make the spectacular plays, but, moving the chains and having that level of consistency has really been a struggle for him, this year. And, who knows if it's a byproduct to him or the offense too, or the receivers around him, or getting in sync with receivers, because you've got a few transfers there. You got, Ricky Pearsall in the slot, who's a transfer. This next month will be a little telling because the level of competition goes down a little bit. You're not facing the teams like the LSUs and the Georgias. So I'll be curious to see if he can, finish strong. And if he can finish strong, maybe you just let him out the door and say, hey, look, give him his blessing, go to the NFL draft, and then try to start over with another quarterback.
Kevin, how you heard Ira, how the fan base isn't as convinced at times with Travis. How are they with Richardson? And then on the flip side, same thing. The twisted part about what's going on in this state is that the three teams, there's a lot of similarities in the depressing part of it. Like Florida State and Miami are trying to catch up to Clemson. Well, Florida's trying to catch up to the elite teams of the SEC. So what is the overall opinion of fan base / media of where this team is at? Because obviously they're not where the elite is at. So is it the quarterback? Is it the coach? Is it the talent? Where do they put the blame on?
I think they put most of the blame on the talent, and some of it on even the talent surrounding Anthony Richardson and the talent on the defense too. Because if you think about it, I mean, Anthony Richardson put up 20 points on Georgia. That's not bad. That's an elite defense. But, this Florida defense all season just hasn't been able to stop people. I mean, they're still next to last in the league in third down. Yeah, they made some turnovers. They made some impact plays. But when they really need a stop in that game, down 28-20, what did Georgia do? Ran the ball 6 times, got a touchdown. A lot of broken tackles. There's just a lack of physicality on the defense and in the front seven. I mean, it appears to be either undersized or not athletic enough, not up to the standard of some Florida teams that were at their best under Spurrier and Urban Meyer. Because a lot of people talk about the offenses of those two coaches, and that's great. But they had some dudes on the defensive side of the ball too,
Yes.
And some pretty good defensive coaches as well.
Yeah, it's funny because then the ball coach goes to South Carolina, and while he was there, his team was known more for its defenses than it was for his offenses. It's kind of like he left the fun and gun with the Gators after he left there. All right, let's go over some of the games this weekend. It's only 2 that we got to go over. Florida taking on Texas A&M. Texas A&M is favored by 3. The over and under is 54. Florida's plus 135 on the money line. Texas A&M minus 155. And, of course, the rivalry game on Saturday at 7:30. FSU favored by 7.5. Over and under is 53. Money line, FSU minus 285 on the money line. And Miami is plus 240 on the money line. We'll see what happens. We'll go around college football. We'll talk about that Michigan State issue. Auburn fires a coach. And another question for our panel. You're listening to the State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable on the Sportstalk305 Network.
It's time to go around the state and find out what's happening on the college football gridiron. You're listening to the State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable on the Sportstalk305 Network. Subscribe to Big O Radio Show on most platforms.
There's no need. If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CFs, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
Why is it that you get locked out in the worst moments of your life?
Where are my car keys? Man, I can't find my house keys.
In those frustrating moments, you need a locksmith you can count on. A. Lenny Locksmiths in South Florida, from Miami to Port St. Lucie. In Central Florida, A. Lenny locks it down in Orlando and Tampa Bay. Lockouts or lock changes for home or business. Car key replacements and programming all model cars. 24-hour service. Call them at 855-869-5625. Go to the website at alennylocksmith.com.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
time to go around the state and find out what's happening on the college football gridiron. With some of the best insiders in the state of Florida covering the Canes, Seminoles, and Gators. It's the Sports Talk 305 State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable. With Manny Navarro from The Athletic, Ira Schofel from warchant.com, and Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun. Huddle up, Miami, Florida, and Florida State fans. Here's your host, Orlando Alzugari.
We are ready to go around college football. Gentlemen, an ugly situation between Michigan State and a couple of Michigan players trapped in the tunnel. And so the question I ask is, it looks like charges will be pressed according to Jim Harbaugh. What kind of discipline makes sense here?
I'd love to see a little bit more I wish there was more video or hear more witness accounts, because the part you see obviously is terrible on the behalf of the Michigan State guys. The only benefit of the doubt I would give them is, did the Michigan guy throw the first punch, or did something, lead to it, or is it just them just grabbing him and beating the crap out of him? That would be my question.
You against 40, you probably don't throw the first punch.
Probably not. Probably not. I'm just saying, it's because if there's not evidence on their kid's side, you got to press charges, and I'd kick them off the team. You can't have players mobbing another player on another team and hitting them with their helmets if it wasn't started somehow. I think they need to be dismissed, and I think their charges need to be. That's unbelievable. I don't remember seeing anything like that before.
Ira, come on, man. I mean, we covered
in 40-1 in the locker room.
Yeah, but also there were a couple of people of authority, behind that group there. There were a couple people there. It's it's almost like they weren't doing anything while that was going on. Go ahead, Manny.
I did say there's one or two Michigan State players that at least seemed to be trying to de-escalate it. There was one or two, but you're right. Everybody else was just walking away and acting like they didn't, almost like it wasn't that big of a deal to them. It was crazy, man.
Well, I was just going to say, as guys who have covered this state and plenty of fights, right? I mean, the Bourbon Street Brawl with Miami, Florida, and the Sugar Bowl. I mean, Florida State and Miami, I'm sure, have had their level of altercations we didn't get a chance to see. I know the internet nowadays, everything is up there quickly, but I've yet to see an explanation. Why were those Michigan players there?
The whole thing is weird, yeah.
I mean, so I can't really kick anybody off a team. Look, you got a bunch of gladiators going into the same exit and out of the same exit. You're going to have guys talking trash to one another. I can't see, in all honesty, and I'm not a defense lawyer here, but I'm just saying, I can't see you kicking a kid off of a team and taking a scholarship away because of an incident like this. Unless you have some real facts, unless you know everything that happened, I don't think you can kick anybody off a team. Just my opinion.
Well, I just go at it from the other way. Again, if there's something that makes you think that there's something that led to it, but if it's just what it looks like, if it's a mob of dudes that just this guy came into the tunnel too early, because they all go into the same tunnel. That's Michigan State's problem, or that's Michigan's problem. But if he just kind of went in too early, but if he was talking trash or something like that, then who knows what happens. But if they just literally grabbed him and started beating him with helmets, man, that's different than just a regular fight. That's
my thing is where's Mel Tucker in all this? In terms of him having control of his team. In that situation, in terms of him, teaching his guys right from wrong in that situation. That it's an emotionally charged game, but take the high road there. Just go back to the locker room and just deal with it. Now, I did see that the Michigan kid kind of went into a group of Michigan State players going into the tunnel. I mean,
that would be a mitigating factor. I'm curious. That's what I would like to hear more about.
And maybe there was something said that kind of sparked it. But still, if you're Michigan State, you got to be a little better than that, I just think. But I have seen on Twitter a lot of people like Michigan State, fans trying to rationalize the whole thing with the tunnel and so forth. But you got to be better than that if you're a college athlete, and you got to be, you got to turn the other cheek there. For as emotionally charged as it is, I know they're 18 to 21-year-old, and I know their brains aren't fully developed. I've gotten that line from a parent once. The frontal lobe of your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 27. So people get emotionally charged. I get it, but it's up to the coach and it's up to the coaching staff to teach these people. And if anyone should be reprimanded, it should be Mel Tucker and his staff.
Well, the one thing
I gotta say, I gotta reprimand the school.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't afford 2 entrances and 2 exits. Don't each of your teams get $100 million? You guys can't have 2 entrances and 2 exits. Come on. Let's go. It's $100 million. What's it going to cost to have 2 separate entrances and exits? Come on, man.
But you remember the Notre Dame tunnel in the 1980s? It was the same thing, right? They had the one tunnel, and then they had the brawl in '88. It's these old style stadiums. It's hard to
Well, and that's what. But that
so
makes
much money in the Big Ten. They can fly their team from the locker to the field if they wanted to. Come on, bro.
But that speaks to if the Michigan player went over there and instigated it, because I'm guessing they keep the home team probably has to wait until the visiting team goes in or whatever it is. There's some protocol, and that's why I was just saying if there's something that led to it. Because look, man, I'm a believer that if you start it, then whatever happens is partly on you. And like LeGarrette Blount back in the day. I mean, look, man, if you want to get up and talk crap to that guy, then you got to deal with the consequences. And so that way I would not dismiss them from the team. If that kid went over there after they just won the game and is talking trash, then okay, maybe there's a penalty for what they did, but I wouldn't dismiss them. Now, if they just grabbed him up off the field and mugged him, that would be different.
I just got to add, comparing the situation to others, as somebody who covered the FIU Miami brawl at the Orange Bowl, I mean, this is nothing compared to that. All right. And I don't think anybody got kicked off the team for either one of those squads.
But that's a fair fight. It's team on team. That's not my only issue, is just grabbing one dude. But if he went in there on his own, that's on him.
I remember in that FIU fight, wasn't there a guy like swinging crutches?
Yes, we had swinging crutches, we had swinging helmets. I mean, it was WWE before WWE, man.
And then Lamar on the radio or on the
Lamar Thomas, just broadcasting it, and
you coming across the ocean. You coming across, and he had all kinds of craziness that he was saying on that. I do remember. I have that sound somewhere, actually. And probably Lamar wouldn't enjoy me playing it. All right. Auburn fires Brian Harsin. They are now paying $44.1 million for 2 coaches, now Harsin and Malzahn, who's also making an extra check right now. First of all, do these universities realize that there aren't that many great coaches? You might have to have some patience with some of these people. You might have to go through some ups and downs. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know where we got to step into a realistic part of this. I get it. There's pressure. You got to win, all of that. But every school is not going to come up with a great coach. And at Auburn, brother, you got to have at least a little patience.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the reason that a lot of coaches will not take that job, right? Because they know that's what Auburn is. I mean, you're not going to get a chance at Auburn.
Well, I was going to say, as much as they're paying Harsin and Malzahn, right, to not coach there, it's still not equal to whatever Texas A&M would have to pay Jimbo Fisher to go away. So that just shows you the gap of how much Jimbo's making. But I'll say this for the Auburn job. Look, there's tremendous amount of pressure because of one guy, Nick Saban, and what he's doing at Alabama for all these years. Yes, Auburn won the national championship, but look, they're operating under a different animal over there, man. Like, when you've got that guy at your biggest rival and they're winning championships every year and playing for championships every year and getting to the playoff every year, I get it. They made a mistake. The mistake here was hiring Harsin in the first place. I get it. You had to fire and find somebody else, but their mistake was Harsin. He was a bad fit from the get-go, and if you're an Auburn fan, you got to be rooting for one guy. There's only one guy I think that could beat Nick Saban and in recruiting, and that's Deion Sanders. I think that's the only guy that they could get into that could make any real difference.
Now you want to break up the Aflac commercial. Damn it. What's wrong with you?
It could make it more interesting. Yeah, I agree with Manny. I mean, it was an odd fit from the beginning with Harsin, and they wanted to get him out of here. And I think there is something to be said for that in the SEC, in this region of the country. It is really hard for outsiders to fit in unless you're going to win. And I mean, this is a guy from the Pacific Northwest. I don't think he ever really got it. And that whole culture down there of glad handing and so forth, and, kissing up to certain boosters and everything. it just didn't work out for him. He didn't, influence the right people, so he couldn't buy himself enough time. And that's what you need down there at Auburn. You need a little bit of a politician and a gladiator too, and somebody that's gonna, but somebody that's gonna recruit and play the game with the boosters. And now that they've got NIL behind them too, Ross Dellinger had a very interesting story about that. You could see them maybe poach a Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss. I mean, that's a distinct possibility, and it's going to be in a way attractive, I think, to a lot of these coaches if they know that they have the NIL machinery behind them, because they know they're going to get players. Kevin,
as a guy that covers that conference, Auburn, it seems like those boosters have a lot of influence. Is that a problem at Florida, and how much is that a problem overall in the SEC, where boosters may have too much power and too much influence?
I think, in light of the Cormani McLean situation, I think Florida wants their boosters to have more influence. I mean, I think they want, with the NIL situation, I think they want, them to get into the game and get those kind of players. Now that the cat's out of the bag now in terms of where we are in 2022 in college sports. I mean, I think that they want, to be in, because there was a very telling graphic in that Florida Georgia game over the last 5 years. Kirby Smart had 25 5-stars to 2 5-stars for Florida. So they're not getting the elite guys, and that talent gap is on the field. And in order to get those talented players nowadays, I mean, you have to pony up, it looks like.
The only thing I would say is be careful what you wish for. And I get it. I understand they need players. But, man, again, there's a lot of coaches that don't want the Auburn job because of the way who's your boss? It's not the AD. It's all of these other guys. And then you got to keep all of them happy. And then, I mean, it's a miserable situation. And I get it. And Florida State has always had the benefit of not having that 1 or 2 or 3 super powerful boosters. And I know they would love to have the money also, and a lot of them are saying the same things, but I caution them as well. Once you do that, once you kind of turn things over to that guy for that, or that lady for that big check, well, you're also telling them they have a lot more power a lot of times than the athletic director does. It's a tough situation.
At Florida, there seems to be a culture where the athletic director and the boosters are kind of in lockstep, that there's a symbiotic, and there's a respect from the boosters that the athletic director is in charge. I don't see the same thing, obviously, at places like Auburn.
I'm just going to say Miami would have never been in this situation having a Mario Cristobal if it wasn't for the Ruizes and for the other, quote unquote Cuban mafia putting the pressure to get rid of Manny Diaz and bring Mario home. So yes, I mean, it's tremendous influence.
All right. One more before we go to the break. Who is your can't miss NFL prospect right now in college football, and why, Kevin Brockway?
I'll say Will Anderson, because edge rushers are so important in the league, and I think he's proven it over the last 2 years that he's an elite guy there. And I know it's important to have quarterbacks, but I think it's even more important in the NFL to have guys that can impact quarterbacks, and I think Will Anderson's that kind of a guy.
Dolphins just traded for one too, and Bradley Chubb. So yeah, you want that guy that can get after the quarterback. Manny, who's your can't miss guy?
Well, I was going to say Will Anderson, but I'll mention Miles Murphy from Clemson. I mean, he is an elite defensive lineman, and as much as I like C.J. Stroud and some of the other quarterbacks that are going to be available and taken very high in this draft, I really feel like when you can get a special, game-altering defensive lineman, Murphy's one of those. I think that's a can't-miss guy.
Ira?
Yeah, I think those are both good. Miles Murphy was the first name that came to my mind, but I would also go with the quarterback. I like Bryce Young. I really think there's something special about him. And I would give him the nod, too.
All right. You are listening to the State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable right here on the Sportstalk305 Network.
You're listening to the State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable on the Sportstalk305 Network. Subscribe to Big O Radio Show on most platforms.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
Hey guys, this is Hayden Hurst, NFL tight end. I'm partnering today with Red Recover. We're going to run you guys through some drills. I started using Red Recover last year, my 4th year in the NFL. It just helps me on Mondays after games, get my recovery process started, get back into the fold of the week, and get ready for the following Sunday. If you want to recover like me, use Red Recover.
When you move, you need a reliable company led by passionate folks, eager to assist its customers during a transitional process that needs to be smooth. Call Essential Moving Experts at 844-368-5750 for all your local and long-distance moving needs. You can rely on Essential Moving Experts. Mention the Big O Show and get $150 off. Family owned and operated, they offer free 30-day storage, full-service moving, fully licensed, bonded, and insured. Moving was never so easy. EssentialMovingExperts.com. You're locked into the platform truly dedicated to college football around the state. This is the State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable on the Sports Talk 305 Network.
All right, we are back. All right, let's preview some of the matchups this week. And the interesting one, we got a rivalry here. We'll have one later on in the season when FSU takes on Florida, but we know Florida avoids Miami, so that we can't go all the way around here. Yeah. What can we do about
2024, that? 2024.
Oh, okay, yeah. Once, it's like the Dolphins. They make the playoffs once every 10 years. Once every 10 years, they play the Gators. All right, here we go. Let's go with FSU and Miami. FSU favored by 7.5. They are minus 285 on the money line. Ira, how confident is this bunch going into this game?
I mean, I think pretty confident, but I wouldn't say overwhelmingly confident. Just because, look, it was a year ago that everybody thought Miami would win easily in this game, and Florida State won the game, and so it's one of those rivalries, and so I don't think anybody's like overly confident. I think the question mark about the quarterback at Miami has some people concerned. I mean, I think that they feel like if you could tell people at FSU and probably including the coaching staff that Tyler Van Dyke definitely isn't going to play, then I think they'd feel better about it. But just the thought that he might be able to play, has everybody concerned. And then, the other side of the ball, again, I think the question from Florida State's offense is, can they punch it in? And when they get down inside the red zone, I think there's confidence that they'll be able to move the ball. But if they can't capitalize on the scoring opportunities and let Miami hang around, now you get into a game where it's a tougher game on the road as the game goes on. So to me, I think the two big things they want to know is, or the two big questions facing Florida State is, can they punch it in when they get scoring opportunities? And will Miami have Tyler Van Dyke, or will they not? And those two things, I think, determine how confident FSU is going to be.
Do you think that the quarterback will look a little better because quarterbacks tend to make plays against this secondary? I will say the Miami secondary has found a way to make more plays the last couple of weeks. They're still not where you would love for them to be, but they are making a little more plays than they had in the past. So do you look at that as that's the opportunity that FSU has, is to beat them through the air? Because it looks like they're pretty good against the run.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like Florida State's receivers. I like Jordan Travis, probably a lot more than some FSU fans do. And I do think that's advantage, although I think I saw Mario said that I think James Williams will be back this week as well. So, Miami's secondary is rounding into form because that was supposed to be a team strength this year. So, Florida State fans, again, with the rivalry, you always wonder, okay, this will be the week Miami's secondary shows up. And so, that's the concern. But, yeah, I think they'll need to run the ball to keep the defense honest. But I think the best opportunities for big plays will probably be in that passing game.
Any big injuries in this game for FSU?
Nothing really. I mean, they're getting healthier on defense. This is about the healthiest they've been on defense since early in the season. And then offensively, Trayshawn Ward, their leading rusher, was out the last couple weeks. He practiced today and looked pretty good. So I think there's a chance he'll be back this Saturday.
Well, FSU is favored by 7.5 in this game. The over and under is 53. What do you think?
That's a good over-under, because I think, somebody asked me what I thought the race was to, and I said, well, if Van Dyke plays, the race is probably to 27 or 28.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If Van Dyke doesn't play, then I don't know if Miami will get out of the 20s, get into the 20s, unless, as Manny said earlier, Florida State makes some mistakes. I think Florida State's going to win the game. Again, the quarterback will probably determine a little bit of how close it is, but I like Florida State to win. I'd say somewhere in the neighborhood of 27 to 17. I think Florida State's a better team overall. The game is in Miami, so that's a factor. But I like the Noles to win this. Now, if Tyler Van Dyke plays, that now it gets a little bit dicier, just because I do think he's an exceptional quarterback. In Florida State's games where they haven't played as well defensively, it's when the other team had a really good quarterback.
I'm with you. If Van Dyke can play, then they've got a shot. If they don't, I don't really see winning. Outside of Travis, who's the most important Seminole on Saturday night?
I'm going to go with I'll go with Fabian Lovett. Florida State was without him. He's their star defensive tackle. He was gone for about 4 or 5 games there in the middle of the season where the defense wasn't the same as it was early on when they played LSU. And I think he's back now. He played last week. He's a big factor in the middle. Can kind of shut down the running lanes, and also he can pressure the quarterback up the middle, and he opens things up for the other defensive linemen as well. So I'd give him he'd be my guy. Prediction?
What happens?
Yeah, I think like I said, I think Florida State wins it. I'm going to say 27-17. I think that Florida State's I think Florida State's offense will score at least 24. I think in the 27 to 30 ballpark, and unless we see something out of Miami's offense we haven't seen, there's a good chance they're held to 10 or 14. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say at home they get up to 14 or 17.
There you go. And Manny, I would imagine that Henry Parrish doesn't want Fabian to play either, because
no,
that's the kryptonite to that running game this week for the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just got to say I'm shocked that Ira's predicting Miami to score touchdowns. I didn't, after watching last week's game, I thought it would never happen again.
I've seen Florida State's defense give some life to some teams, though.
Yeah, well, I think Henry Parrish can run the ball. I think Inez Cooper was sort of a revelation for Miami last week in the sense that he could play an entire game and be effective for you for 4 quarters. His pass protection isn't there. I think Jake Garcia is going to get sacked quite a few times in this game, and I think ultimately that's why Florida State's going to win. Besides the fact that they've got the better quarterback in this matchup, I think ultimately Florida State can get some pressure. The fact they're getting their defensive tackle back is going to help them quite a bit, slowing down the Miami running game. So I just don't think the Hurricanes are going to score a lot of points. If they do, it's going to be a special teams. I mean, look, they've had a kickoff return for a touchdown earlier this year. Keyshawn Smith had one. I think the punt return game has actually been pretty well. Jacoby George has done a pretty good job with punt returns, and they've, they can make things happen on special teams. They got one of the better punters, but that's just not going to be enough to beat this Florida State team. So that's the way I think things are going to go. Not a lot of points for Miami, and probably more than enough for Florida State.
Punting, not an edge. Come on. Van Dyke, how bad do we know? Because, you told me on Saturday post-game you didn't think he would play this coming week. So,
yeah.
And you're still dead set on he's not playing this week. How bad is that Van Dyke shoulder injury?
Well, I mean, look, everybody saw the way he walked off the field, right, against Duke. He had that thing clutched close to his chest. When I saw him, he didn't look to be in tremendous pain. I'm sure he had some good drugs in his system, right, to help deal with that. But I just think, look, if he's not throwing the football, and we still don't know that. For as much as Will Mallory said he looks good in practice, we still don't know if he's really throwing the football. My guess is he isn't, from speaking to some people close to him, that, this is a situation where he's not going to rush it back. He's got the NFL and other things to think about. There's no point in going out there. This is your throwing shoulder. This isn't the other shoulder, right? So I would be surprised if he ends up playing in this game. That doesn't mean he won't suit up. Doesn't mean he won't be an emergency quarterback or something of that type of situation if something were to happen to Garcia. But I would be surprised to see him play.
What you look at what goes on with Van Dyke? Give me a picture, a scenario outside of FSU just saying, here, have the ball. But outside of that, how can Miami earn the victory, not given the victory? Or can they even earn this victory without Tyler Van Dyke?
Well, I think, look, Leonard Taylor's coming off of his best game, and he's the 5-star, recruit that's playing like a 5-star right now for Miami. Again, look, he did it against Virginia. Virginia's got one of the worst offensive lines in college football, but he has been coming the last several weeks. I think between him and Daryl Jackson, they're two, interior defensive tackles. Jared Harrison-Hunt, who's kind of the third guy. Florida State's offensive line has improved, but it's still not one of the best ones or anything like that. So I think if they can create pressure up the middle, force Jordan Travis to get out of his comfort zone, he's going to make plays with his legs. But I think if they can just do a good job containing him, then they can stay in this game. And if you get a turnover or two, that's probably the key to victory.
Let me ask you, the secondary has actually started to make more plays. They're not nearly as terrible as they were at the beginning of the season. Is there any hope there that they could make some plays against Travis this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tyreek Stevenson is looking healthy. He was banged up for a good portion of the season. This last game, you saw him chase down a Virginia runner to make that important tackle near the goal line. He had a pass that he broke up. So I think he's starting to feel better. James Williams is supposed to be back, as Ira mentioned. So I think, from a secondary perspective, they're doing okay back there. They're certainly not as horrific as it was against Middle Tennessee State, where you were having huge breakdowns. Look, the bottom line is they just don't have a lot of depth. You can't, if something were to happen to Tyreek, if something were to happen even to DJ Ivey, who I know we sit here and we laugh at because of all the touchdowns he's given up over the years, there's not a better option right now on the bench, really, in terms of guys who are going to come in and be able to be physical. Ivey can at least line up with Johnny Wilson, who's a big receiver. He's got long arms. He can at least give him a battle. If you got to stick Daryl Porter in there, Daryl Porter's 5'9", 5'10". I mean, that's just going to be a mismatch all day. So I think as long as they can stay healthy in this game, they'll do a decent job. But they're going to need some lucky breaks here and there to win this game.
Well, Ira had him. Over and under is 53.
Is pretty good at their job, right? So I think they will get to the 9 points that they need.
Under also.
Yeah, and an under. I think Miami's defense is going to do a decent job. They'll stay in this game at some point, though. I can see Travis escaping the pocket, running for a touchdown, and putting the game away. One thing to note here, Wesley Bassane, who's a very talented freshman linebacker for Miami, is unlikely to play in this game in my mind. He got dinged up at the end of the last one. Miami basically had to move Caleb Johnson, move Corey Flagg, who is their starting middle linebacker, to weak side linebacker. Extremely thin at that position. So this is the kind of game where if they've got to be out there for 60, 70 snaps, you could see them tired in the fourth quarter and missing a few tackles.
All right, Kevin, the Gators take on the overpaid Jimbo Fisher, baby. Texas A&M favored by 3. The over and under is 54. Florida's plus 135 on the money line. Jimbo is his team is minus 155 on the money line. Do you like that? Is that accurate on behalf of Vegas right now, making A&M a 3-point favorite at home?
Well, Jimbo's found his quarterback, right? Connor Weigman, the freshman, the third stringer, 4 touchdown passes against Ole Miss. All of a sudden, the offense kind of showed signs of life there, just in time to face the Gators, right, who are, on a 2-game losing streak and struggling. So I think that's probably what Vegas sees in terms of, that concern, and the fact that, Texas A&M kind of made a game of it against Ole Miss. It's number 10 in the country. But this is a Texas A&M team that still has holes. I mean, they're next to last in the SEC in run defense, and Florida likes to run the ball. So I think, Florida can come out with the right mindset, behind that offensive line that's played well. They might be able to control the tempo a little bit in this game.
You expect Anthony to do a lot of running then in this game, is what you're saying?
Well, I think that they'll go with the backs. I think they'll try to go with the backs first. Montreal Johnson, who was really shut down in that Georgia game, and Trevor Etienne, who had a touchdown run and 54 yards rushing in that game. But, you're going up against from, an elite front seven in the Georgia game to a Texas A&M front seven that's probably a little more suspect in terms of their ability to stop the run, and Anthony will sprinkle in and he'll get a few carries too as well, I think.
How have the Gators handled the road this year?
Yeah, they went to Tennessee and they got down by about 2 or 3 scores and kind of made a late comeback. So that has been their lone road game of the season. But actually, it was one of Anthony Richardson's best games. He threw for 453 yards in that game. Maybe a little bit of the pressure was off. Now, Kyle Field will be very similar to Neyland. They still draw pretty well. I mean, will they have over 100,000? It's a noon start, 11 a.m. local time, kind of an early morning start there. So that'll be interesting for both teams. But I think, a little bit of longer travel, right? You're going halfway across the country, and Florida, the last time they played Texas A&M a couple of years ago in 2020, they pretty much had that game won, but they had a late fumble with Malik Davis, and they lost a shootout 41-38. So I expect this is going to be another tight ball game between two teams that are really kind of struggling right now and trying to find some kind of spark.
Is there any key injuries Gator fans should be concerned about going into this game?
Well, just one guy, Keon Zipper, is a little banged up from the Georgia game, starting tight end, but we'll know more in the injury report on Wednesday. He's questionable. But other than that, you're talking about a team that's Florida team that's pretty healthy. But obviously, you lose Brenton Cox, the edge rusher, who gets kicked off the team. So that's going to be a hole that they're going to have to fill. They have a couple of guys, Antonio Powell and Lloyd Summerall. They're going to kind of step into the rush edge spot there for a Florida front seven that's already been, already was a little suspect.
Well, by the way, second road game this year already for them? This is it? Second road game?
That's it. So they've played a lot in the swamp.
How is it that they rig 8 and 9 home games every year on their schedule? What is it that the Gators are doing? What is that?
Well, you got the game in Jacksonville too, which is kind of a quasi home game, but they played 6 of their first. But now 3 of the last 4 on the road, including the game up at FSU. So November, they're doing a lot of traveling. Yeah.
Convenient there. All right. Exactly. So what do you think? No, seriously, the passing game in this contest. What do you see the Gators trying to do in the passing game against Texas A&M? How's their secondary?
Yeah, their secondary is decent. So, I think that's going to be a little bit of an issue too. And Anthony Richardson inconsistency, but I think they're going to really strive for balance and establish a run first and play action. That's what they've been doing all season. That's where they've been really their most successful. I think the concern is in the other end with Weigman and how he threw the ball in that first game, because Florida's pass defense has been really kind of feast or famine. They're 11th in the SEC, but they do come up with interceptions every once in a while. They had 2 interceptions against Stetson Bennett, so they can make big plays from time to time in terms of their ability to create turnovers. But if they don't create turnovers, they tend to give up a lot of yards.
He is Kevin Brockway for the Gainesville Sun. He covers the Gators on an everyday basis. Make sure you follow him on Twitter and, of course, at the Gainesville Sun, Ira Schofel and warchant.com. If you're a Seminoles fan, follow Ira on Twitter and also at Warchant. Manny Navarro also on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. And, of course, subscribe to The Athletic. I am Orlando Alzagari. And, of course, we thank Sean Stanley, who masters this program. Stay tuned. Coming up, it's the Miami Hurricanes Watch with Mike McCoy. You are listening to the State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable right here on the Sportstalk305 Network. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the State of Florida Gridiron Roundtable on the Sports Talk 305 Network. This program is mastered by Sean Stanley and Chad Show. Make sure to subscribe to the Big O Radio Show on all platforms. Thank you for supporting us.